In the chaos of World War II, one man's decision would alter the lives of more than 1,000 people forever. Oskar Schindler, a German businessman, began the war as a member of the Nazi Party with the sole goal of making a profit from the conflict. However, by the war's end, he would be remembered not for his wealth or status but for saving over 1,100 Jews from the Holocaust. His transformation from opportunist to hero is one of the most extraordinary in history, a journey that reveals the capacity for humanity and redemption even in the darkest times. Schindler's story begins in 1939, as Germany invades Poland, marking the start of the Holocaust. Schindler, a charming and ambitious man, arrives in Krakow with plans to start a factory that will profit from the war. He secures a factory and begins hiring Jewish workers because they are cheap and easily exploitable. Initially, Schindler's motivation is purely financial. He sees the war as a business opportunity rather than a moral crisis. Schindler's factory produces enamelware, and while he remains focused on his profit, he soon crosses paths with Itzhak Stern, a Jewish accountant. Stern is well educated and resourceful, a man who recognizes the factory as one of the few places where Jews might find refuge from the Nazis' increasing persecution. Despite Schindler's businesslike attitude, Stern quickly becomes his ally. He helps Schindler run the factory and begins to realize that the factory, though initially a means of survival for the Jewish workers, could become a lifeline for many. Stern recruits workers not just based on their skills, but based on their vulnerability, knowing that many would be sent to concentration camps if they did not secure work in Schindler's factory. Schindler, however, is not yet a savior. He continues to live a life of luxury, surrounded by Nazi officials, using his charm and wealth to move through high society. He regularly bribes Nazi officers to ensure the safety of his factory and to maintain his standing. The juxtaposition of Schindler's lifestyle and the suffering of the Jews around him is stark, yet it's not until the liquidation of the Krakow ghetto that Schindler begins to undergo a transformation. The brutal scenes of the ghetto's liquidation change Schindler. Nazi soldiers violently uproot entire families, dragging them from their homes and shooting anyone who resists. Schindler watches from a distance, not just as a businessman but as a human being witnessing an atrocity. Amid the chaos, Schindler sees the image of a little girl in a red coat. She stands out in the otherwise drab surroundings, her bright red coat a beacon of innocence amid the horror. This single, haunting image stays with Schindler. The girl's fate is unclear, but her symbolic representation of lost innocence triggers something deep within him. Schindler begins to question his role in the system of oppression and dehumanization. From this point on, Schindler's transformation is both gradual and profound. He goes from merely being a man who profits off the war to becoming an active participant in trying to save as many Jews as possible. The events that follow reveal the complexity of Schindler's character. He starts to use his influence and resources to bribe Nazi officials and ensure the safety of his workers, even going so far as to protect them from deportation to Auschwitz, where they would face almost certain death. The turning point in Schindler's journey comes when he decides to create a list of the famous Schindler's List. This list is not just a roster of names, it's a lifeline. Over 1,100 Jewish men, women, and children are saved by Schindler's efforts. The process is grueling and fraught with risk. Schindler uses all his charm, wealth, and power to convince Nazi officers that these workers are necessary for the war effort. At the same time, he manipulates the bureaucracy of the Nazi regime to get his workers out of harm's way. Each name on the list represents a life spared, a family saved from the horrors of the death camps. The film also highlights the horrors faced by those who were not fortunate enough to make it onto the list. The scenes in Auschwitz, where women and children are sent to their deaths, are some of the most harrowing. The audience is given a glimpse into the sheer brutality of the Nazis' operations and how the guards would separate families, strip prisoners of their dignity, and murder them without hesitation. For Schindler, the reality of the death camps becomes clear. He is no longer a passive bystander but an active player in a life-or-death struggle to protect his workers. Schindler's efforts are not without sacrifice. He is forced to spend much of his fortune to bribe officials and protect his workers. As the war goes on, his wealth begins to dwindle, but his commitment to saving lives only deepens. Schindler, who once viewed the war as a business opportunity, now sees it as a moral duty. His transformation is marked by his willingness to risk everything at his factory, his money, and even his own life here to save those who would otherwise have been condemned to die. In one of the film's most poignant scenes, Schindler is confronted by the fact that he could have saved more lives. As the war comes to an end, Schindler faces the reality of the lives he could not save. He is handed a ring by the Jewish workers he saved, a symbol of their gratitude. The inscription on the ring reads, "Whoever saves one life, saves the world entire." Schindler, overwhelmed with guilt, breaks down, lamenting that he could have done more. He feels the weight of every life he could not save, and the pain of not being able to rescue more is almost unbearable. Schindler's final moments in the film highlight the paradox of his transformation. While he is a hero to those he saved, he remains haunted by the lives that were lost. The film ends with the survivors of Schindler's List, now free and with families of their own, visiting his grave. The sight of the many people whose lives Schindler saved and whose descendants continue to live is a powerful testament to the impact of his actions. Schindler, in the end, is remembered not for his wealth, but for the lives he saved in the face of unspeakable evil. The epilogue of the film, where the surviving Schindler Jews place stones on his grave, speaks to the enduring legacy of Schindler's actions. In Jewish tradition, placing a stone on a grave is a sign of respect and remembrance. In this context, it represents not just gratitude but also the ongoing impact of Schindler's moral choice. By saving over 1,000 people, Schindler became a symbol of hope, reminding us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can prevail. Schindler's story, told through Schindler's List, is one of courage, sacrifice, and redemption. It shows that even those who appear to be beyond redemption themselves can find the strength to do what is right. Schindler, once driven by greed, found his own redemption in saving others. His transformation serves as a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming evil, one person can make a difference. The impact of his actions ripples through time, touching generations who owe their existence to his bravery and humanity. Schindler's List is more than just a recounting of historical events. It is a tribute to the power of individual action in the face of systemic evil. It serves as both a lesson and a warning, reminding us that the horrors of history should never be forgotten and that we each have a responsibility to stand against injustice, no matter the cost. The film's message is clear: one person can make a difference. Oskar Schindler's transformation from a self-serving businessman to a man willing to risk everything for the lives of others is an inspiring story of how the darkest circumstances can bring out the best in people. In the face of genocide, Schindler chose to see the humanity in those around him, proving that even in the most horrific of times, humanity can prevail. As we reflect on Schindler's story, we are reminded of the enduring need to stand against injustice, no matter the cost. In a world where hatred and violence often seem to dominate, Schindler's List serves as a powerful reminder that there is always room for hope, compassion, and redemption. The film's message stands as a beacon of what is possible when we choose to act, no matter how dear the circumstances. Oskar Schindler's legacy is one of defiance against evil, showing the world that humanity can make a difference, even in the face of unfathomable darkness. The story of Schindler's List leaves us with one final, powerful image: the Schindler Jews, now free, walking away from their past, ready to build a future that would never have been possible without Oskar Schindler's courage and moral compass. It is a reminder of the weight of our actions and the endless potential for compassion and change, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant the effort may appear.